Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Dietrich, Associate Director of Membership, and I'd like to welcome you to the magic of a Longwood Christmas. This event will be recorded and the video will be emailed to all attendees. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce our presenter, Jim Sutton, Associate Director of Display Design. Since 2007, Jim has been the aesthetic gatekeeper for Longwood, responsible for designing, implementing, and Longwood's renowned conservatory displays that elevates the art of horticulture. Jim will take you behind the scenes to reveal how Longwood creates this world-renowned Christmas display. Get a glimpse into the inspiration, planning, creation, and of course the execution of this jaw-dropping seasonal show that is our favorite of young and the young of heart. At the end of the presentation, Jim will answer your questions about a Longwood Christmas, so please submit them through the chat. Jim, thank you so much for being with us today to share your love of a Longwood Christmas.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you, Melissa. So I am going to talk to you about a Longwood Christmas and tell you some of the magic behind it. So first off, it's always Christmas. This is just a slide to start things off to tell you that we start as early as a couple weeks from now, we will start planning next year's Christmas. And the Christmas display wouldn't be possible without all of the talented staff and volunteers that make this happen. So my role is sort of the head elf. I get to pick the theme and I get to help people with their projects, but it really is a 23 very talented different project leaders, as well as their crew of volunteers, staff, and students that help make Christmas happen. So the first thing to start it all off is the theme. It's sort of the guiding part of it. And here you're getting a nice shot of the finished view of the center walk. And this year's theme is Fire and Ice. So it's on view now through January 9th. And I think when you see this presentation and hopefully come and see it in person, you will definitely see that we were able to execute the theme both inside and out. So it starts by coming up with some inspirational images and some verbiage to really get people thinking about what we're going to try to convey. So this was really a fun theme to work on. Truth be told, we had this theme for 2020 and we decided not to use it because of the pandemic, and we decided to put it on pause and bring it back in a year where we could welcome more guests to enjoy the display. It all starts with the planning. So here you're looking at what seems to be a very complicated map, and this is all about the outdoor Christmas lights. So if you're in here enjoying the display and you see a small group spending what looks like way too much time in front of a tree, that's the Outdoor Christmas Lighting Committee, and we are trying to decide where to use our lights and how to use them most effectively. So we are 100% LED. All the lights that come on the property, we put the date of their arrival on the end of the cord, and we get 5 years out of those light strands before they start to fail and we have to use new ones. But every year, we are always looking for new lights, new techniques, new colors, and I'll share some of them with you. But this is what the plan looks like if you could see it just on paper. And now I'm going to show you what it looks like in real life. So first off, a big shout out to the arborists. The arborists start in September, sometimes a little bit earlier, and putting all the lights on the trees. So this involves a lot of climbing. We do light very, very large trees, and they work hand in hand with the electrical department to make sure that all these trees get powered up. And they even check the trees during the display to make sure that squirrels haven't damaged any cords, or if something burns out, we replace it. So we keep the light display as strong as we can the entire time. Your experience will start off in the visitor center, and I put this slide in here because I just thought this was so inspirational. The project leader came up with this form, and it's all made out of dried grasses, most of which they harvested from the property. And then our metal shop made a frame that goes underneath it. And this is a good time to tell you that things happen in Longwood because of all the talented staff, but also because of our very talented facilities department. Longwood has its own plumbers, carpenters, electricians, masons, painters. And so everything that we do, we try to have it done in-house, and they all understand the level of excellence that we would like and how much goes into every display. So you can imagine this was the prototype of the first one. And when they did that, I said, this looks amazing. Now you have to make 12 of them. So they executed them. And if you look closely at them, you'll see this level of detail. So a lot of times our project leaders are gardeners first and foremost, and they definitely want to use horticulture products in their displays. So it really turns out quite spectacular. Then you'll come out, you'll enter the garden. The first one I want you to have is a chilly experience as you walk down the drive. So all of these lights hang over your head. It's a beautiful experience. And as the taxodiums on the side lose more needles, those lights will brighten up. And you can see just that little hint of fire in the distance, drawing you to it. The open air theaters, of course, are up and running. Beautiful show there. So many of you are familiar with the open air theater fountains, but I always enjoy taking guests there because it really is a nice intimate show that we can do in that space, weather permitting. Crowd favorite is always the wildlife tree, and this year it does not disappoint. So you see those large orbs on there. They're actually grapevine balls that were covered with cheesecloth and then sealed with floor sealant. And that made them so they were weatherproof and we could illuminate them from inside. And we also have lots of things for our feathered friends to eat, pine cones rolled in suet, buckets of seeds. So as usual, when you walk past this tree, you will see the tree shaking sometimes with all of the activity from the birds and the squirrels. It's in its same location it was last year at the end of Flower Garden Drive, right there on the corner of Pierce's Woods before you hit the lakes. And speaking of the lakes, this is one of my favorite displays we've ever done outside. We have these new technology, these bulbs that actually look like fire, and whichever way you orient them, they always look like they're a flame ascending up. So we had all these round cages that have the lights in them, and they're suspended from all the trees, as well as the tree in the middle there. If you look closely, when you see these in real life, you'll notice that it is composed of a strand of 3 different colors. It's red, orange, and yellow, all on the same strand. And when you light a tree that heavily, it looks like it's on fire. And it's also a beautiful reflection in the water. So while these images are lovely, there's still nothing like seeing it in real life. Another thing that was new this year was we wanted to try luminaries on the lake, so floating luminaries. So we started off this year with this simple pattern of these 3 sort of organic lines and lit up at night. I think they're really nice, and I think you're really going to enjoy them. And then this is something that we'll probably build on now that we know how to do it. So there's a finished shot of it. And a lot of displays evolve that way. We try them one year, and then we kind of tweak them and perfect them afterwards. Now, this was the tree from last year. So we're using the tree again, but the programming has gotten so much better. So please take time to look at this tree. You'll see it go through different renditions where it looks like it's on fire and there's little embers running up through it. And then you'll see where it looks like it freezes. So again, the theme of fire and ice reflected in the lights. Another favorite was the root tree. So the gold one on the left is one we did years ago. This is a new color palette called Miami, and we did the roots with that. So you'll see that on the boardwalk as you're out in the meadow. Another thing, at Longwood, if we like something, we have a tendency to keep making it bigger and bigger. So the meadow tunnel has hit an all-time high of 200 feet. So it goes through 3 different phases: the rainbow, the galaxy, and the warm fire. And you'll actually be able to experience all of them as you make your way through the tunnel. The cool thing about it now, it has a slight bend to it, so you can't see one end from the other. And I will give you a little sneak peek. This is sort of the rainbow effect as it's coming towards you. So definitely worth seeing, really a nice addition to the display this year. And of course, the Garden Railway is back, up and running right by the Terrace Restaurant, a favorite, especially with the little ones. We did move the gardener's tree. This was a tree that was normally at the end of Polonia LA, and we moved it to make way for a fire pit. So, but I still wanted to maintain this large decorated tree outside. So here you can see it under construction, and it was done sort of in a snowball theme. So it has a Caribbean light strand on it, which is blue, teal, and white. So you'll see that strand used several times, that color combination, whenever we wanted to evoke that icy feel. So that mixed with whites and silvers should give you quite a chill. Inside the Pierce Pont house, the staff has gone to great lengths to decorate the entire house. The tree in the center has a really nice garland made of hydrangea harvested here from the garden, and a sort of pink and green color palette. The house is one of those places that did not have to follow the theme, except for I did ask the team members to create a fire for every fire pit, or fireplace. So you can see the mantles are decorated, there's trees throughout the house, but every fireplace has a different interpretation of fires. None of them real, but all of them very artistic. Tree houses are another spot. I know they're a perennial favorite, and they are all up and decorated for the season. So we encourage you to, as you're walking around, to go through all the tree houses. And here's our fire pits. So the gardener's tree that I mentioned that we moved was here in this circular bench area. And instead, we created this large fire pit that'll be burning every day from noon to 11, weather permitting, of course. But a nice place to warm up and to gather. And this one has a nice curved bench behind it that you can sit at and enjoy the fire. It really wouldn't be a fire and ice theme if we didn't have at least our 3 locations of fire outside. And you can see guests gathering at them. They really are nice. You can smell them outside, and everybody likes a nice wood fire. The main fountain garden is also done in our light show. It is a 15-minute show, but now due to construction, the overlook is unavailable, but you are certainly welcome to walk through the main fountain garden and go up on top of the pump house, and you'll get a very nice view back into the main fountain garden. And as I mentioned, it's a 15-minute show before it repeats. So it's the best we could do as far as interpreting water with lights. This is another really fun one. We took the orbs that we've used in the meadow in the past, and now we have them bouncing down the landform like giant snowballs. And they're in different shades of blue and white, and they do phase in and out of colors. So it's a really fun way to welcome you to the conservatories. The cut trees. So people always want to know about the cut trees. The one thing I will tell you is that I won't tell you where we get our trees from. That is a source that we do keep private, and it's just because we're always in competition for these trees, and some of them we have to tag a year or 2 ahead of time. So we really don't want other people competing for the same trees. We have a very talented crew that starts a week before installation to put all the lights on the trees. We actually give them a training course. We have a video for them to watch, and we are meticulous about the way our trees are lit. So we also critique each other on your tree lighting ability. This is the main conservatory. So just as the outdoors has a plan, the indoors has a plan. So this is something I generally do myself. And with all the plans for the different seasons, I do it and then I turn it over to the gardeners who get a chance to look at it and give me their feedback on it. And this would be perfect if plants could read, but they can't. So we generally have to make sure that we have everything in place because we only have 4 days to execute this display. So it has to be very accurate. The changeover begins with gathering all the staff, reviewing all the safety protocols, and dividing up into the different teams. Everybody knows ahead of time what team they're on and what their responsibilities are. And then we say goodbye to Chrysanthemum Festival. So it's always sort of bittersweet because the chrysanthemums are usually at peak when they have to go to make room for Christmas. But it happens every year. So thanks to planning, dedication, talented staff, production brings up all the crops, and then the display team starts putting them all in all the different walkways. I will call this out for you this year is we do have a one-way route through the conservatories. This is due to our Longwood Reimagined. We want people to have the best experience under glass. And if you follow this route, you will see everything and have a very nice, enjoyable experience. But it's set up so that the crowd can flow. We do want you to go in the music room a different way than people have in the past. We want you to go in through PBX, and I'll explain that a little bit more later. And we want you to go around the entire orangery, the main conservatory, and see all the displays in there, then going into the Silver Garden and actually exiting out the Acacia Passage. So it is a different route than most people are used to, but I promise you, if you follow the route, you will see the entire display. The East Conservatory will welcome you in a warm, fiery theme. And I'm not going to give all this away, but these illuminated lanterns are incorporated in the bed and actually incorporated up the tree. So it's a very warm planting palette of red stem dogwoods, these yellow gosmanias, winterberry hollies, yellow begonias, and red amaryllis. and it's really, really a nice warm color palette. You'll also notice in the east that we've used a different color light on all the shrubbery and the trees. It's called champagne, and it's a nice sort of a pinky warm white. It's a very nice colored light, and I really like it. We unify the entire house with that light. So here's another shot of the installation to kind of give you an idea. The tree on the stage is the largest cut tree under glass. I think it's around 24 feet tall. It's also the fattest tree we've ever had. And it is smack in the middle of the patio of oranges. So you'll be able to enjoy the tree from two different sides, and you have photo ops on both sides, identical, but you can't really walk across the patio because of all the packages and the rest of the display. So there it is. So you can see how beautiful it is with all the lights on it, fully decorated. It's really is show-stopping. But again, this is something that you have to see in real life. The pictures are great, but to see it in real life, it's really quite amazing. So you'll leave the East Conservatory and you'll go into the main conservatory. And we wanted it to be really icy. I wanted the fern floor to be a very icy experience. So very talented crew here did the fern floor project. I mentioned our facilities guys earlier. Here's our lead carpenter. All of the acrylic that we used on the floor, you can see the pattern in the upper right there. That was all hand cut. And then we did an application on it. And the application had to sit in the sun actually to dry and cure and adhere to the acrylic. So the idea is that the fern floor is freezing from the edges. There are two fountains in the middle that are keeping it from freezing. And it's got this very intricate pattern, much like things would have as crystals form in them. It has 6 decorated trees, and it terminates in one large revolving tree on the stage. So here you can see many people at work decorating these trees with an icy plant palette. Now we did also lightly flock these trees to color them up a little bit more. The center walk, we also wanted that to continue that view. So we created these birch trees. We harvested from the property, sunk them in concrete, and then we brought them in and put them in the middle of the center walk. And there's also 4 large decorated trees there as well. From the main conservatory, you'll go into the silver garden. And in here, we've created a frozen fountain made out of succulents, Spanish moss, and twinkling lights. And there's a beautiful tree behind it done in the purples, blues, and whites. The music room. We wanted this to feel like an upscale lodge. So you'll find when you go in the music room, it's very warm and inviting. We did a pair of matching trees in there. Here's some of the team members as they did it. They really enjoyed this. This room actually gets done a week before installation, and that is because we use this room for filming. So this is where the TV commercial is filmed, and we also need to get this room done so that we can use these talented team members in other areas for other installations. The table is set. It's a beautiful table setting. If you've seen the display, the #1 question I get is, what are the place cards? Who are those people? So what they did was the project leader, in the course of doing this room, she interviewed everybody helping her, and she found out the name of their pet and or their child, and she surprised them by making them the guest at the dinner table. So we also work with a talented linen artist who brought us that amazing fabric for the tablecloth. Here's a bigger view of the room. And you can see as you look out on the extended view of the patio, it looks frozen out there. So you're in this very warm lodge, and then you look outside and it's back to winter again. So I think as you walk through the display, you'll definitely see where we repeated the fire and ice theme, not to mention all the beautiful candles. And there is a fire, of course, in the fireplace. The ballroom has a beautiful tree that Longwood decorated, along with hundreds of packages. The organ will be playing. It is not a sit-down concert this year because we have the children's trees in there. So the children's trees were done by local school groups. We did 9 of them. And in the past, the trees were very small when they were in our fruit house. This year, they've jumped up to 14 foot. So it required the school groups to commit to making 300 ornaments. And then we supplied a red core of about 400 ornaments in the center of it. And then that way we could use all of the ornaments the children created for the edges and bringing their stuff out. So it's a very nice walkthrough experience. Sometimes you'll hear music, sometimes you won't, but either way, you would definitely enjoy all the efforts the children made on their ornaments. And here you can see sort of the layout of the room. Each tree features just one school's ornaments, and they will get them all back at the end of the display. So we put them up on pedestals for them, and we did 400 packages that were all decorated for the room to accent the trees. The north door is another photo op favorite. So here, the center one has that strand that's red, orange, and yellow again, and then it's got champagne on either side of it, decorated with tillandsias and lots of red glass. The orchid display is still on display. We really wanted to have the orchids visible to the guest. So while our orchid room is part of the reimagined process and will be open soon, I wanted to have orchids for the guests to enjoy at Christmas. So what we did, there's a mirrored display here at the north door of orchids, so the guests can see orchids the entire time. And here, just to talk about our ornaments a little bit, we used over 20,000 ornaments this year. And we know that number because we keep an active inventory of all the Christmas ornaments we have. So we have about 550 different types of ornaments, and they, they total about 55,000 ornaments. And every year, we're adding more ornaments to the collection. So the total seasonal crops was a little over 13,000, and that includes 2,500 poinsettias. So we're using about 13 different cultivars of poinsettias, many of which we grow in-house. So for all of our displays, we grow about 70% of all the crops we need. Now, at Christmas time, there are some crops that we do buy in. So for example, cyclamen are better if they come from Canada. The anthuriums are better if they come from California. And tropical plants are better if they come from Florida. So we do know that there are certain places that it's just, we don't have the space to grow them, and other places can grow them quicker and more efficiently, and we buy them in from those locations. So there are 50 decorated trees on display. The tallest is 27 foot. And as I mentioned, it's the one thing I can't tell you where they came from, but I can tell you they were all fresh cut and then loaded up and brought immediately to Longwood. And we put them on stands with water, and we do not add anything to the water. A lot of people ask, should I put something in my water? I've heard everything from aspirin to gin to vodka to pennies. And the answer is fresh, clean water is the best. So we just make sure that our trees never dry out, and hopefully they last the entire display. And as I mentioned, this is always a group effort. So it takes 200 dedicated and creative staff, students, and volunteers to bring this display to life. And that's it for me. Melissa?
Thank you, Jim. I wanted to share a few details about visiting during a Longwood Christmas. Jim, next slide. Member reservations. Member reservations are required daily from open to close during a Longwood Christmas, except for Garden Premium members. We ask members to visit early into the season, as sellouts are likely, especially during weekends and the week between Christmas and New Year's Day. Reservations can be made online. Please note, 0 to 4-year-olds are not counted in your membership admission, as they are free every day, but they do require a time member reservation. Jim, if you can, next slide. Helpful hints about making your member reservation. Please visit longwoodgardens.org. From our homepage, you will see our gardens admission availability directly underneath this beautiful image of the gardens. From here, you will actually see our you'll see the gardens admission availability at a glance. And this could be seen for several weeks by scrolling to the right. The key to the gardens admission availability is directly underneath the header. So anything in blue, so all of these times in blues, they are an active link and we have plenty of tickets. Anything in red is an active link, but tickets are limited. And anything with a hash through is actually sold out. We wanted to share with you that reservations can be made every half hour from 10 a.m. until 10:30 p.m. Please note you may enter up to 30 minutes before or after your time schedule. However, we are not open until 10 a.m. If our website shows that we are sold out for a particular day or time frame, we are sold out for all of our channels. If you're interested in bringing family and friends and using your complimentary guest tickets this Christmas season, our homepage also shows when complimentary guest tickets can be used and when they are not accepted. So each day there's a note for each day. So if you're looking to make your member reservations and looking at when complimentary guest tickets, all of that information is really handy directly on our webpage. Jim, could you next slide, please? Complimentary guest tickets. So complimentary guest tickets are available online, like I mentioned, and they can be accessed anytime through your online membership account or at central ticketing. And these complimentary guest tickets can be accessed until your membership expires. Complimentary guest tickets, as I mentioned, have blackout dates. And so the blackout dates during the Longwood Christmas are all Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays during the Longwood Christmas through January 2nd, as well as every day from December 24th through January 2nd. Next slide, please. So now we have time for Q&A. So please put in your questions into the chat and I'll be able to read them and share them with Jim. So Jim, we have our very first question from Sandra. She was hoping to know a little bit more about the budget that you have for a Longwood Christmas.
Yes, okay, great question. We do set a budget. So it's my job to distribute the money to everybody. And so everybody gets a set amount of funds to work on their projects, and that's usually based on how much they've used the previous year. So in total, I would say it's probably close to $200,000. Now that doesn't include the outdoor lights. They're a separate line item. But what we do is we divide the money up amongst the projects and everyone is responsible for their own budget. And then I do save a small chunk back that I use to buy new ornaments. I get to buy a lot of new ornaments, but then I don't get to use them again the next year because we give the ornaments to you. There's a picking preference. And for example, like the music room gets to pick first. So why I get to buy a lot of new stuff, I don't usually get to use it again. But we do try to maintain a very tight budget on the Christmas display.
Great. We also have another question. Are the trees grown in the US or are they out of country?
They are all American grown trees and they're within driving distance of Longwood. So that's about all I'm going to tell you about our tree sources, but they are relatively local, I would say.
Great. I also just wanted to share a reminder. This presentation will be recorded and we will be sharing it with you all via email. So you could share it with family and friends as well. A few people saying that they've already been here already and they've loved it. So that's wonderful to see. When you decided to move 2020, so that theme of fire and ice, to 2021, was there a lot of scrambling around because people know that you have these themes planned out so long in advance?
No, our team is very nimble and flexible and everybody understood what was going on. So we very strategically decided that it was not the best idea to be the only house in the village with the lights on. So what we did was we decided to just go back to a very traditional Christmas. And we were able to cut the budgets and we were able to use a lot of stuff we have on hand. So it was sort of like what most of us do at home. We went to the closets and we saw the ornaments we had and the decorations we had, and we thought, how can we repurpose these? And everyone was very agreeable to it because they knew that this theme would reappear. So everybody was very responsive and we didn't have any trouble switching gears.
Great. So I have a few that are asking, would you be able to share the video of how you train staff on how to wrap lights around a Christmas tree?
I will have to look into that. We do have it. It is part of a Longwood learning session. It was done by staff. So I'm not sure how we can make that available, but it would make sense to me that we could make that available to members. It'll make you rethink the way you light Christmas trees, because the way I light my tree at home would not pass Longwood lighting.
I take it you would need double or triple the amount of lights?
You need a lot more lights. And then we also do this thing we call the squint test when we're done. And that's standing back from the tree and squinting and making sure that there are no dark spots in the tree. Now, with LED lights, it has made this much easier because you can connect up to 20 strands together. So before, you had to run major power cords up the center of the tree, and every so often you had to go back and start a whole new line of lights. But with LEDs now, it's much better because you can connect them end to end and do a normal sized tree without too much problem.
Sure, thank you. I love the squinting of the eyes.
Yeah.
We're going to all go do that at home. We received a question about using your complimentary guest tickets. And when you use your complimentary guest tickets, do you also need to make a reservation for those guests using complimentary guest tickets? And so, and the answer is no. If you are using complimentary guest tickets, you do not need to make a reservation for a time and a date. The only stipulation about complimentary guest tickets is you need to use them on a day that they can be used. You cannot use them on a blackout date. So if you're making a member reservation for yourself, that's fine, but complimentary guest tickets do not need a reservation for a date or time. You just need to make sure you can't use them on a blackout date. Somebody asked about making a reservation to dine at 1906, and that could be made on Open Table. We received a question about the new Orchid House. Do you have any information when the new Orchid House will reopen?
Sure. We are anticipating it to open probably in February, March of this coming year. So stay tuned. It's just a matter of, we had delays with materials like everyone else did. So it is back on track. I have seen the room. So it is largely done, but it's still have a ways to go of getting all the new panels in there, and then of course moving the orchids in. So we're anticipating early next year.
Fantastic. We received a question about custom lights and specific color combination that you mentioned. So there was a Miami in there, and
yeah,
all fun names. So is that something we've designed, or are those mass produced?
It works both ways. Actually, the strand that is red, yellow, and orange was something we came up with, and the manufacturer liked it so much that it's going to add it to their list of things. So that's why that one doesn't have a name yet. Miami was one that they came up with, as well as Caribbean. That was another one that they came up with as well. But we have a very close relationship with our light vendor. We use a wholesale company called S4 out of Atlanta, and they only sell wholesale, to my knowledge. And they supply a lot of our lights. They also do the programming for us for the main fountain garden, the tree in the Italian water garden, and the lights down the drive. So they have been a great partner in all of this, and we are going to try to get some of their lights available in the shop. So we were hoping to sell champagne lights, that new color, in the shop, but I think we may have used them all up. So I'm sorry, you may have to wait another year to get the champagne lights. But that is the company, and they are very aware of what's popular colors and what we're using.
Sure. So we had a question about time tickets and member reservations. If you can't use them, how do you cancel? So we do send a pre-visit email before your visit date. And within that information, there is a link of how to cancel your member reservation. So we do ask, if you made reservations and you can't join us for a particular reason, please go to that email. There's a link to actually cancel those member reservations, and then it provides access for somebody else to come and enjoy the display. We have a few questions about Christmas themes. One, how do you come up with your Christmas theme?
Okay, what we do is, some I've just come up with myself once in a while, that I get the epiphany in the shower, but also we gather the team together. As I mentioned, they're all very creative. So I've discovered, you gather the team together, you feed them, they like to be fed. So you have a big pizza party, and then you open it up, and we mine them for lots of ideas. So we pick out like the top 30 ideas, and then we let them vote on them, and then we see what comes to the surface. I also then go to our marketing department and do the same thing with them, with the top ones from the horticulture department, and see what they think. And then this year I went to our gift shop and went to them and said, hey, what do you see trending? What's going on out there? So the themes can actually come from anywhere. I do keep a list of all the themes we've done for the past 30 plus years. So I know what themes we've done. And we try not to repeat them. And even if we do repeat one, we'll probably make it very different than it was done the first time. So I think the themes are important because it gives the whole team something to sort of wrap their mind around and a good starting place. And it also gives a nice marketing message that our marketing department can use.
Fantastic. So another question about theme. Do you know next year's theme? And if so, would you share?
I have a strong idea of where it's going, and I will reveal it to the team first. And then we keep it generally quiet. Marketing likes us to keep it quiet until they're ready to release it. So we only use the theme internally. So to answer your question, unfortunately, no, I will not tell you what the top themes are. You'll have to wait and see.
We have another question about the types of trees. Could you share what kind of Christmas trees you feel are great trees to put ornaments on?
Great, sure, very good question. The first one is Fraser firs are what we use most often. They've got a nice dark green color to them, and they have stiff branches and they hold ornaments well. So Fraser firs are the #1 tree that we're using. After that, we use a lot of Abies concolor. That's a concolor fir. They have sort of a bluish cast to them, so they're nice, especially for the icy theme. And then the only one that we do use less of are Douglas firs. And we use those for our floral trees in the main conservatory, just because they have larger needles and they cover up the pots of the plants. So those are our top 3 conifers that we use for cut trees in order.
Great. We had a question. Would you know if Rockefeller Center, their tree, if it sits on water like ours does?
I imagine they do keep it in water. That tree happened to come from Maryland, and one of our part-timers is in the neighborhood where that tree was harvested from. And I can tell you a little story. They actually apparently pick the tree out in the springtime. They make sure it gets very good care throughout the growing season, and then they provide security to it for the end before they harvest it, so nothing happens to the tree. So I imagine that that tree, once it gets there, is well watered and kept in water, even though afterwards they're not going to use the tree, they're going to use the wood, and it's a different type of tree. It's actually a spruce, but I imagine that they keep it in water. Outdoors, of course, the tree is much happier than it is inside, but it's still thirsty and will still be drinking up water.
Great. A question about members. Can they come and visit a Longwood Christmas more than once? And the answer is yes. Make your member reservations throughout the season and come and see it. I think, Jim, seeing the conservatory during the day and then seeing it at night, very different experience. What do you say?
Yes, we definitely do design it so there's daytime interest, but at nighttime it does take on a different feel. So during the weeknights, especially when the visitation is a little bit lighter, it's great to experience both day and nighttime, inside and out.
So we have a question about ornaments that are featured in the conservatory on those special trees. Are they available at the garden shop?
And unfortunately, many of them are not. We do share our sources, but as you can imagine, there were supply chain issues this year, and I still had ornaments arriving on Friday after we were done decorating the trees. The other thing is, a lot of the ornaments you see used have come from past years. As I mentioned, we do catalog and inventory and keep all of our ornaments. So a lot of the ornaments we're using aren't manufactured anymore. So we're happy to share sources that we buy the ornaments from, but again, we buy wholesale. So you'd have to talk to retail places to see that you could get them. And we do share them with the shop, but sometimes too, we're buying the ornaments, and by the time we're done, there's not enough for the shop to buy. So supply chain issues definitely affected that question. And if we have a special unique ornament, we certainly try to make sure that it's available in the shop, but quantities are always the issue.
So how long has a Longwood Christmas display been at Longwood?
We've had these displays since the late 50s. I think 57 might have been the first one. So we've been doing it for decades now. And it's actually dates back even before that. Pierre had a history of having a nice big tree on the fern floor and handing out gifts to the staff. So a Longwood Christmas goes back quite a ways.
Another question about the theme of Christmas. Do you have a favorite from years past?
Well, I like to say, like parents, I don't have a favorite. I do have elements from every year that I really like. So I can't say as I have one that stands out. I do think this year is an incredibly strong theme and a very cohesive theme, but I don't have one that I can point to and say, this is my absolute favorite. And I still have several more to execute. So don't have a favorite yet.
Okay. Another question about the theme of the children's trees. So is it the same theme or was it a little bit different?
The children are given guidelines, the school groups and organizations, and every year they kind of change a little bit. So this year, we really asked them to follow an icy theme because we explained to them that the trees being so much bigger, we had to be able to decorate the inside with one type of ornament, and we would feature all of theirs on the outside. So we did very much ask them to follow an ice winter theme inspired and sort of a color palette of whites and blues and silvers, explaining to them that what the theme was and how we wanted their ornaments to tie into it. So, and I think they did an excellent job. I mean, they really did a nice job with their ornaments. So it was great to see. But yeah, sometimes if we can get them to tie into the theme, we will.
Great. How could you volunteer to assist with decorating for Longwood Christmas?
The volunteers we have are already volunteers here at Longwood. So we don't bring in special crew of volunteers for Christmas. They're the volunteers that help us throughout the year. And a lot of them work on these Christmas projects throughout the year during rainy days, or sometimes they take projects home and make them. So it is actually, we tap into our current list of volunteers. So if you're a volunteer, thank you. And I'm sure you've been involved, or if you want to be involved, all you generally have to do is talk to whoever you volunteer for and say, I'd like to help out with Christmas.
Fantastic. Another question, where do all the plants go after they're pulled out from the exhibit from the previous display?
Oh, the sad answer. They go to compost, especially all the chrysanthemums. So the chrysanthemums, they're so prone to viruses and diseases that we do not take stock plants off the display. So all those plants, when they're done on display, we turn them into compost. They go back in the compost stream. And that's because we can't save them over. And we also have the next crop of plants already planned. So all of my planning is done a year in advance. So right now I am working on Christmas for next year. And up until that point, everything has been planned. All the plants have been selected. The numbers have been done. And as soon as the poinsettias start to leave the greenhouses, other plants start to fill those spaces.
Great. You mentioned about the fern floor and the icy pattern that was done on the plexiglass. Could you share, was that paint or some kind of treatment done to the plexiglass?
Sure. It is an application is what I was told. So it's something that our facilities guys are really good at doing surface treatments. And this is an application that you'd apply to glass or plexiglass. I don't know what its name is exactly. We'd have to find that out for you. But it was something that you could put on top of it that adhered to the acrylic and made a pattern on top of it, much like you would use frosted glass in a restroom.
Fantastic. We had a question about using your complimentary guest tickets. So your complimentary guest tickets, when you access them online, they have a expiration date printed on them. It's a year from the day you access them. So if your membership is expiring soon, but you have your complimentary guest tickets, you can use them after your membership expires, but you do need to access them and have them in your email prior to your membership expiring. And let's see, I do have a few questions. Do you remember the first year that the Longwood Christmas display moved from a complete parking lot experience inside the garden gates? I hear people that they mention they remember being a kid driving around the parking lot to see the lights.
Well, I can tell you my history with Longwood goes back quite a ways. My mother started working here when I was 10 years old. So I've seen Longwood for the past 44 years at this point. So I remember that when it was a parking lot experience, there was still, the gardens were decorated, the conservatories were decorated, and there were lights inside. But we used to put lights on every tree in the parking lot. Now, what happened was, as word got out, people would drive through that display and enjoy it. But the downside was we were backing up traffic on Route 1, and we were making it very dangerous for the fire trucks to try to get out. And the guests that wanted to come into the garden couldn't get in because of everybody circulating the parking lot. So that's when we strategically made the decision to bring the display more into the gardens and only do a few accent trees in the parking area. And it was encouraged very much from a safety perspective of just not blocking up Route 1. And I believe it's been at least, I'm going to say 16 to 20 years that we have not done that type of thing. We've not done the display in the parking lot.
Wonderful. One last question that we received, and it has to do with the cafe about a holiday fruit cobbler. Will they have it this year? That's a great question. Their complete menu for the cafe, the beer garden, is all on our website. So if you click on to dining, you'll be able to see all of that information. And I hope your favorite fruit cobbler is there again. But Jim, thank you so much for sharing with our members your love of a Longwood Christmas and your passion for everything of a Longwood. This, as we mentioned before, this recording will be emailed to all of our attendees. Please share it with family and friends. And we would also like to thank you, our members, for your support. Not only preserves our rich legacy, but also helps Longwood Gardens to continue to inspire from so many from generations to come. Thank you from all of us at Longwood, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you.